What's going on, everybody? Good late morning. We are still basking in the afterglow of the big win in Santa Clara this Sunday, but we are starting to turn our focus to the future, the present. The past is certainly nice sometimes, but we gotta keep a focus on things that still have a story to be told. And there's plenty of stuff on the Seahawks team that has a story that is not yet finished. So, in this video, I want to talk about one of those particular players. And this is a topic that a lot of Seahawks fans have been buzzing about in my comments and in my stream chat. I see it on X, I see it on Facebook. I see this one everywhere. And now I'm seeing it from Greg Bell. He actually wrote a little article about it in the News Tribune. Now, the article is actually about quite a few things regarding Ernest Jones, but the central question is, should the Seattle Seahawks just take care of that contract extension for Ernest Jones right now, get it done with, and just rest assured that he's locked up long term? And the reason why this question is being asked is because he has played very well. After having an opportunity to really look at it, I can tell you with pretty much 100% certainty that Pro Football Focus was not telling telling a accurate story with their grading of Ernest Jones in this last game. He played very well, and his contributions are greatly needed. So the Seahawks have a lot of players to extend next season. And I want to be clear about one thing. If we do let him go, we will get a compensatory pick back that will likely cancel out the pick that we traded. We just have to wait a year for it. So letting him walk would not be the unmitigated disaster that letting somebody like a Jamal Adams walk would have been because of all you gave up to get him. It's not quite the same. But bottom line is, he is very, very good. And we have direct comparisons, right? Because we just spent a couple of months watching Dodson and Baker play linebacker for us. Now we're watching Ernest Jones play linebacker for us. And we can see how much better Jones is and how much valuable that better is. So Greg Bell wrote this article kind of giving additional voice to the many people wondering about this. And we have a lot of contracts to give out next year. We've talked about that plenty. But I think this is a conversation worth having because this was not a guy who was in your calculus when you were thinking about this offseason. Before I go any further, though, I want to say, if you like this video, please click the thumbs up button down below. Subscribe if you're new. Click the bell for notifications. Become a channel member for $2 a month. Those are the best ways to help support the channel going forward. All right. So this article covers a few different topics concerning Ernest Jones, his arrival here, what he's done so far. But the kind of meat of the article, the interesting part was talking about how on Monday, McDonald was asked about whether he and Schneider are considering re-signing a guy like an Ernest Jones during the season. And here's the thing with Ernest Jones, that for most players that are up for extensions next year is not true. Ernest Jones is a free agent next year. Once the league year expires in March, he can go anywhere. Ernest Jones is an imminent free agent. That's not the case for guys like Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Boye Mafe, Charles Cross, Ken Walker. Those guys have 1 year, or in a couple cases, technically 2 years left on their deal because of them still being on their rookie deals, but only open to negotiating if they've done enough to earn it. So that puts things in a different light because now the player holds the cards because they can just go into free agency. A guy like a Boye Mafe doesn't have that leverage, right? Because we could just say, look, we can make you play the 4th year of your deal, or you can get in a staring contest with us over that. And we think we're going to win that staring contest. And then you don't even get the year accrued if you stay out. If you come back, we get you at a very cheap rate. You have to pay a bunch of fines. You can't do that with Ernest Jones. Also, Ernest Jones is coming off a rookie deal that didn't really give him that much money, at least not in NFL terms. And he is probably going to try to get every dollar he can out of negotiations here, right? because he hasn't made that much. This might be the only big NFL contract he ever signs. We can't all be Bobby Wagner playing the inside linebacker position and signing multiple significant contracts in his career. So, unlike a guy like a DK Metcalf or a Geno Smith, who have already made a decent amount of NFL money and maybe their priorities will be a little bit different when their extensions come up, I think Ernest Jones is going to have a pretty single-minded focus on maximizing his money. So, McDonald, to get back to the original point, he didn't really answer it directly, which he can't do, right? He can't give a direct answer to something like this. But he did say that John and I are talking every day about our team and our direction. And he also said that we're really excited about Ernest, and I hope there's an opportunity for him to be here for an extended period of time. So, not much of a direct answer, but this is as good an answer as you're going to get in this situation. Anyway, you can't really talk about this stuff. But here's my question, because I think we're all pretty happy with the way Ernest Jones has played so far, how big of an upgrade he looks like he is over Dodson and Baker. But I want to ask, with all that being said, what does an Ernest Jones extension actually look like? Because there's definitely a line that I don't think I can cross. And I'll get to what I mean in a second here. So, Ernest Jones, through 3 games as a Seahawk, he's put up numbers, and other than maybe some of the coverage stuff against the Bills, I think he played very well in these 3 games. He's done a little bit of work trying to rush the quarterback that hasn't been super successful yet, but we're talking about a guy who has significantly improved the run defense and become kind of a stalwart in the middle that we did not have over the first several games of the year. And again, you can see the difference. But we also have to realize here that Ernest Jones is not some super blue chipper. This is not some perfect physical specimen who runs a 4.45 and weighs in at 240 pounds and has perfect zone drops and can keep up in man and has lateral agility. Like, Ernest Jones has shortcomings as a player that he will never be able to get around. He's not a stellar athlete. He's not fast enough to consistently keep up in coverage. This is not Fred Warner. This is not Roquan Smith. And also, when you're talking about Ernest Jones, yeah, he's a good player, right? Last year, he was near the league lead in tackles and was considered to be maybe the best blitzing linebacker in the league. But what are we really talking about here? This guy has never made the Pro Bowl. This guy has never made the All-Pro team. This guy was traded for basically nothing from the Rams to the Titans before the season started. And then he went from the Titans to the Seahawks in a modest trade, but not a significant asset. And because of the way things work, there's no way he's going to make the Pro Bowl team this year. He's not an All-Pro. He's not that good. So he doesn't really have any real career accolades. The only thing he has is a Super Bowl ring when he wasn't even the full-time starter his rookie year. So Ernest Jones, yeah, we know he's good because we watch him, but he's not good in that super obvious way that stands out to the point where everybody knows how good that player is. He's more good in a, once you see what it looks like when you don't have a good player in that role, you know the difference that he's bringing, even if he himself is not single-handedly just taking over the game like a Ray Lewis. So, what are we talking about with the extension here? Because here's the thing, and I've talked about this before, the inside linebacker market is basically, it's like you've got your top 1%, which would be the 3 top paid inside linebackers in football. You have Roquan Smith at $20 million a year, Fred Warner at $19 million a year, and Tremaine Edmonds $18 million a year. That's like your top 1%. Those are your billionaires. Those are the guys at the very top. And then it crashes so quickly. There's no upper middle class, right? Patrick Queen, 13 2/3 is next. And then Aziz Al-Shaair gets 11 1/3. So if there is an upper middle class, it would be that. But that's more of like your middle class with Zaire Franklin, Bobby Okereke, excuse me, Olukun in Jacksonville, 10 million. And then you drop off into the guys who are making less than 9 million, like Jordan Brooks, Demario Davis, CJ Mosley. And before long, you're actually going to start getting into some of the guys who are on rookie contracts. So at that point, most contracts are basically just set. So in order for Ernest Jones to be worth 18, and I understand these contracts are a couple years old. The Fred Warner contract's actually several years old. That's probably going to get refreshed this offseason, or whenever Warner's up for a new contract. But for Ernest Jones to be worth this, let's call it 18 million a year plus value. And I don't think this, because I don't think this market has shifted that much over the last few years, evidenced by the fact that we had all the linebackers last offseason signed at rates much lower than Roquan's from 2023. You would have to make an argument that you are as good as Roquan, Warner, and Edmonds. And I can tell you he's not as good as Roquan Smith. I can tell you he's not as good as Fred Warner. I don't know how Edmonds has been playing in Chicago. I'll just be perfectly honest on that. But he was very good in Buffalo. So I would say probably not. And if you're not in that group, do you really just fall all the way down to these guys? You got Patrick Queen, who had 2 really good years in Baltimore and is a former first round pick, so he's got a little bit more of that blue chip pedigree. That might get him a little bit more money compared to somebody like an Ernest Jones, who was a third rounder. You got Al-Shaair. Maybe you land around here. This is what makes this so hard. We have so few big linebacker contracts in this league right now. Like literally, you get through the top 10 and you're already down to guys who are on relatively meaningless contracts in the grand calculus of everything. You're getting down to guys, like I said, who are on their rookie deals. So it's so tough to construct linebacker contracts because clearly, if you're perceived as the best of the best, like Roquan and Fred Warner, you end up around 20 million, and it doesn't feel like that number is going to go up because it didn't go up last year because none of the guys were as good. So there was a universe where somebody like Patrick Queen was able to just sit there and wait for somebody to give him Roquan Smith money. It didn't happen because linebackers are not being valued like that anymore unless they are Roquan Smith or Fred Warner. So there's a good chance this market doesn't move, and next year you're still looking at like 20 million being considered the top of the market for an inside linebacker. But Ernest Jones is not that, I don't think. He's not a top 3 guy. I don't think he's a top 5 guy, really. Maybe he could be top 10. I need to see more. I think that in this league he might be, but in a league that is a little healthier at the linebacker position, he probably wouldn't because, I mean, he does have those limitations. So does it land somewhere around Al-Shaair, and then we just have to take the slight overpay as the cost of doing business with somebody that you traded for? I mean, remember, if he walks after this season, because he is a free agent after this season, you do get a compensatory pick that should cancel out the pick you traded to get him. It's just a matter of are you willing to wait the year for the pick? That would not be that big of a deal. The big deal would be either losing a player who would have given you appropriate or even better value for what you could have paid him to stay, or giving somebody too much money based on the value they will provide during that contract. That's what matters here. So I think he goes above Al-Shaair. I don't think he gets above Queen, if I had to guess. I'd say you're looking at something like 3 years, 42 million. So maybe just above Queen. 3 years, 40 million. Maybe a 4-year equivalent. And I think I'd be okay with that. I wouldn't love it, but we need players like that right now. All right, let me know what you guys think. See you guys later. Go Hawks.